You're listening to a proud member of the FightFans Radio Network.
UFC on Fox 4 post-fight show here on the FanAddicts MMA show. I'm your host, Erica Lewis. I am joined by my co-hosts, David Wolf and Justin Cohey. What's going on, guys?
What's going on? Some night of fights.
Pretty amazing night of fights. Actually, right before we came on air, Justin and I were chuckling that you were the one that was texting us both saying we need to do a post-fight show. We haven't done a post-fight show in quite a while. And if that's any indication on how amazing this card was today, it was. It absolutely was just a great night of fights. The UFC kind of outdid themselves tonight. David, since you're the one who kind of instigated this whole thing, tell us why this particular card deserves FanAddicts post-fight show.
Well, I think I texted after the second fight, which I thought was fight of the year quality. And I would also go, I think the main event may have been fight of the year quality as well, although I still think the second fight was probably better. And the opener was Joe Lozon against DeMarcus. I'm sorry. The opener was DeMarcus Johnson against Mike Swick in his return. And that was an excellent, really a back and forth battle for a round. And then Mike Swick finished it with a great knockout in the second round. And that was a great way to start the night on the Fox show. I didn't see the Fuel card except for Phil Davis's the abortion that happened there.
Yeah.
But when I watched the second fight, Joe Lozon and Jamie Varner may have been the best fight I've seen in a few years. It was one of the best fights I've seen over the last few years. It was just so technical, so back and forth. Joe Lozon landed a beautiful triangle submission from a transition. He got taken down. I think it was a double leg from Varner, and he got this sweep, butterfly sweep, into a transition into a triangle and finished the fight. But I was so impressed with Jamie Varner. His heart, he seemed to blow up a little bit, but he was doing body work that I don't think I've seen in MMA, maybe ever. Just throughout the entire fight, he was landing to the body with knees and punches, and he had some amazing leg kicks. It was, I think, for me, it's the fight. And then actually, Machida Bader doesn't belong in the ring with Machida, and Machida completely outclassed him. Landed pretty much at will in the first round, kind of clowning around, almost doing an Anderson Silva type of clowning with Bader, and then Bader ran into a beautiful right, knocked himself out kind of. But it was technically it was so sweet. Bader finally ran in and Machida knocked him the fuck out. And obviously I was disappointed with the outcome of Brandon against Shogun, but it was a war, and Brandon, I think Brandon showed something tonight that a lot of people have questioned whether he really belongs in UFC. Certainly whether he belongs in there with a guy who's considered one of the top light heavyweights in the world. And Shogun was champion not that long ago. So Brandon hung in there. It was a great battle. When it comes down to the title eliminator situation, I think Machida was more impressive. I think Shogun, he blew up. If he's going to fight John Jones again, I think Shogun, what he needs is, and here's a punt for you, some more fuel in the gas tank. Because that guy just, after a round, he's breathing out of his mouth and he's having trouble. and he's got a lot of heart. But I don't know if a rematch with John Jones is what we need right now. So I'm thinking, Machida, or maybe you go to how do you pronounce his name? Glover Teixeira.
Teixeira, yeah.
Teixeira, if he defeats Rampage in a really impressive fashion, maybe you can do that.
So here's the benefits of Twitter, David. Dana White did announce that it will be Machida facing the winner of John Jones and Dan Henderson. So we do know who's next in line for the title.
I think that makes sense. And I think it would also make sense for that to be on Fox and not to be a pay-per-view.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they need to they captured a little bit of lightning in a bottle here with Machida's performance. Normally the fans would criticize the, as you put it, the Anderson Silva-esque showing off, but casual fans love that shit. So I think if they can capitalize on the fact that was seen on Fox and actually get the title fight on Fox, whether it be Dan Henderson or John Jones. I'm seriously doubting it'll be Dan Henderson, but it's MMA. Anything can happen.
You know what, though? If it's Dan Henderson, I'd almost inclined to make that a pay-per-view. Yeah, although I it's not going to do out of the world numbers, but I think that being a unique matchup, first-time matchup, could potentially do better than John Jones against Machida, although you're dealing with John Jones's drawing power on its own versus Dan Henderson, who hasn't really proven to be a significant draw. But if he were to defeat John Jones, Dan Henderson against Machida could maybe do some numbers.
Right. That's true. It probably could. Although, with Machida's quickness, I doubt that it. I don't know. I feel like the hardcore fans would be hard pressed to sell a fight to. All right, Justin, our resident matchmaker. Let's start at the bottom of the card. Let's start with what did you think of the fight? So let's get your take on everything. What was your? I already know what you're going to say, but tell everybody else.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were talking before the show, and last week we had some sour things to say about the UFC and kind of the way that they've been operating lately. UFC 149 was probably one of the least successful shows in terms of excitement and putting on good fights that we've seen in quite some time. And then for a week later for them to put on this show that I think we didn't have great expectations for, and it ends up being easily probably the best show of the year, if not one of the best shows the UFC has put on in the past years. I mean,
right.
Like from top to bottom, it was absolutely incredible. Just an absolute. I watched every fight tonight. I went to the little store. I did. I managed to make it there and back before missing the Phil Davis fight, which probably would have been the one fight that I could have missed.
Yeah.
But from top to bottom, one of the best that I've watched in a long time. I'm sitting in my apartment by myself because the couple of people that were supposed to come watch it with me bailed on me. And
They're lost, right? They're lost.
Yeah, it was funny because I moved couch to so I could beat the TV screen of it.
That's a real fight fan right there, people. Somebody who's ready to get as close as they possibly can to the TV and start yelling. Yeah, I was standing up at parts during the main event, especially when Vera had landed some really good combinations on Shogun at one point, and I was hoping to do something. When he tried the guillotine on Shogun, but
that was scary.
Yeah.
That was really scary.
All right,
that wasn't scary at all. That was quite pleasant to watch. I mean, that was scary. Scary from your perspective, from Shogun's perspective. Are we supposed to empathize with him?
I think
from my picks perspective.
From your ego?
Oh, okay. Let's talk about my ego. Okay.
It got scary to you because you picked this guy to win.
Whatever.
Never mind that your co-host here actually trains with Brandon Vera. It got scary because you picked Shogun to win.
It was a good fight, though.
I'm disappointed in you, Justin. I expected more.
It was.
Dude, you sound like one of my parents when I did something bad when I was in middle school. It's like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I'm not mad. I am disappointed.
All right.
That's the worst thing you could say to me. Thanks, David.
All right. I know David kind of did a rundown of the fights, but just real quick, and I don't want this show to be very long. I just want us to kind of talk real quick about what went on tonight. But I do want to go through each of the main fights again real quick. And the opening fight, Mike Quick-Swick, he knocked out DeMarcus Johnson in the very beginning of the second round after starting off the first round really well, and then getting mounted in the final minutes of the round and not really being able to get DeMarcus Johnson off of him. We've seen Johnson use submissions. He does have a little bit of a ground game, so it was probably had a bit of a scaredy for Swick there. But again, he came out in that second round, caught a leg kick, took Johnson down, and then from there landed an overhand right that was really just quite devastating. Herb Dean didn't even realize that Johnson was out.
A few extra punches, too.
Yeah, nobody in the replays you can tell that Johnson was out after that first punch, but while you were watching it, it was kind of hard to tell. So I can't imagine, in the ring in the moment, because you can see in the replay, Herb Dean is kind of walking over, and then he's like, "Oh shit!" and then he runs over and stops the fight. But really good performance from Mike Quick-Swick. All right, Justin Cohey, who do you think Swick should be facing next?
Well, I've got two ideas for Swick. One is Matt Brown, just because I think Matt Brown does have a little bit of name recognition. I think that's a good, solid main card fight on like an FX card, maybe a solid main on an FX card.
The real tough Matt Brown this time.
We're talking Matt Brown. We're talking Matt Brown. Yeah, we're talking Matt Brown at 170, not Brown at 145. I think a tough tonight, and I think that's half away. But I think it's a tougher fight to sell than Swick versus Brown.
Oh, wait a minute. Who'd you say was a tough fight?
I think the tougher fight is Swick versus John Hathaway, because John is a little more well-rounded.
Right. But
an easier fight to sell and probably the more exciting fight would be Swick versus Matt Brown.
Yeah.
The only reason you think it's a tougher fight is because he's tough. If you watch Tough, you would have learned that Matt Brown is the toughest man walking.
His nickname's the Immortal. I should know it, but by that alone.
But you leave it.
Not really.
So what do you think should happen to DeMarcus Johnson at this point? He's very much so middle of the pack, not even bottom middle. What's the bottom middle? Bottom middle of the pack.
Bottom.
Top bottom. He's top of the bottom.
He's top of the bottom.
He's a power bottom.
He is. Me and my friends have a running gag, not that you guys need to know this, of this made-up DJ called DJ Bottom. And that just reminded me of that. I'm going to bring up DJ Power Bottom now. You brought up Power Bottoms. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but anyway.
Right?
Say what?
He's just away from Strike Force.
He really is. He may actually have just...
Or Bellator.
Yeah, he might have just, knocked out and wake up in Strike Force at this point.
I mean, in all honesty, Ben Saunders probably murders Marcus Johnson. And I would, think most guys, I think Tyron Woodley and Nate Marquardt probably beat DeMarcus, not even probably, I think definitely. So that's why I'm taking Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, the 170 karate guy. I think that's probably a fairly good matchup for Jim Johnson. Not really tough, but it's a battle. I think that's probably the best show.
All right. So then, just real quick before we continue, Fight of the Night awards were given out, $50,000 apiece. Joe Lauzon gets two, one for Fight of the Night with Jamie Varner, and one for Submission of the Night. Mike Swick gets KO of the Night, and and that covers it because that's fight of the night as well. So good on Jamie Varner for that. So we can talk about that fight next. Joe Lauzon and Jamie Varner. I was actually.
Can we just go back to fight to KO of the night? I think I would have gone with Machida.
Okay, so I've had this conversation. I'm trying to think who I've had this conversation with recently. I don't like it when the big name guys get the fight bonuses. It needs to go to the guys that are trying to make a name for themselves, not for the guy who's already going to get $250,000 tonight.
You're such a comment.
Well, I mean, what I agree with that, but at the same time, I hate it when they double up on the bonuses. When I think maybe was that the only?
You're Skyping out.
Yeah, you keep Skyping out. Go ahead.
You're Skyping out. Bad.
Am I okay now?
You're okay. You're okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the only other submission tonight was maybe Philip DeFries. So, yeah, I can get submission of the night. Fight of the night, I wouldn't mind them giving it to somebody else that they're not doubling up on the awards. So that maybe I thought David, I said he didn't see the field prelims, but I thought the Cole Miller and Nam Fan fight was pretty awesome.
It was a good fight, but I honestly think
Varner looked. Yeah, that's tough to not get.
Yeah, the Varner really looked. I thought he looked really solid in that fight against Joe Lauzon. He had some really bright moments himself in that fight. I picked him to win. I didn't realize that Joe Lauzon had been working on his stand-up game that much. He has greatly improved in his boxing, and that definitely showed in this fight. Where I still think Varner had the edge, at least in terms of technical aspect of the stand-up game. But Lauzon was the longer fighter, and with his cleaned-up stand-up game, he really did kind of put a whooping on Varner. But Varner was there. Varner was there. He had an opportunity to really turn this thing around when he got the takedown in the third round, messed up and got caught in a triangle, and he tapped.
Jiu-Jitsu sealed the deal there.
Yeah, but he had some really great submission defense. He escaped some tough spots with Joe Lauzon, who is not an easy guy to shake off you, especially when he's on your back. And I believe Lauzon had his back at least twice in that fight, and Varner was able to get out of those situations and get back to his feet and get back to swinging, which is what he wanted to do. Who do you want to see Lauzon fight next, Kohi?
Well, I mean, before I get into the matchmaking, I will say this, that yesterday I was picking Lauzon fairly heavily just because I a large amount of disrespect towards Varner. I didn't think that he had the skill that he showed tonight. And I'm not going to say I'm like apologizing to Jamie Varner because Lord knows he's not going to listen to the show. But much respect to Jamie Varner. He, especially on short notice, to come out and perform like that. I mean, you could see at times that he was definitely tired, but for him to throw these combinations and the elbows on the inside were really impressing me. So,
was he short notice? Who was Lauzon supposed to fight originally? I thought Varner was the original opponent.
Lauzon was supposed to fight Terriano.
Oh, yes, you're right. Okay.
You're questioning Rayman here.
That's true, I am. But I keep Rayman on his toes, so. Who's Lauzon supposed to face next, according to you and Joe Silva? Tell Joe we said hi, by the way. I know he's there.
No, dude, shut up, David. As far as Lauzon, I'm saying either Rafael dos Anjos or I should say Rafael dos Anjos. Those fucking weirdo Brazilians and their R's, and Mark Bocek.
Okay.
I kind of like the dos Anjos fight better, I think.
And they would be two very different fights. I think Bocek would really. Thank you. I think Bocek would probably turn into a grappling match. And I think what was the other guy you said?
Dos Anjos.
Dos Anjos. Wow. Sorry, guys. I think Dos Anjos would be more of a stand-up war. But either fight, I think, is a really good matchup. All right, let's move on to the next fight.
Hold on. I'm more excited about my ideas for Varner.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you want to see Varner do next?
Okay, my first choice was Anthony Njokuani, but then I thought Jeremy Stevens versus Jamie Varner would be
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be fireworks.
Absolutely awesome.
That would be a really, really good fight. I like that a lot. Yeah. Make sure you get Joe to make that match up. Call him up when we get off air and let him know.
Have to call him up. He said he's hanging out in his bedroom or something.
Dude,
I don't know how this happened, Kohi, and I'm so sorry.
Dude, I can't wait to meet David.
Oh.
Dude, I can't wait to meet David and just smack him across the face.
David is a pretty intimidating looking dude. You might have to smack him and run, but
whatever, I got the reach on him.
So
it doesn't matter when it goes to the ground.
That's true. And then he'll do the wolfitine, and it will be over.
Whatever. If he does the wolfitine on me, I'll just throw up on him, and then he's got that problem.
we learned to deal with that. Snot, throw up, all sorts of stuff.
Oh, gross! Now I'm gonna throw up. All right. So the next fight on the card.
We got to get the wolf to come out of the limit.
You guys are just not going to let me talk about this next fight on the card, are you? You just talk about throw up.
It involved Ryan Masturbator.
Oh, he didn't belong in the cage, like you said, Dave. He didn't belong in there with Machida. It was obvious from the beginning. It was obvious from when they made the matchup. Machida toyed with him.
Is this the last time we get to see him in a fight like this?
I think
so. Get past Ryan Bader fighting any top level competition?
Yes, I think we can. I think we can get past that point. Ryan Bader didn't even put a dent in Lyoto Machida in that fight, and ended up sleeping on the.
Might have put a dent in his fist.
Yeah, that's true.
The way he ran into it.
So what do you want to see next for? Well, obviously Lyoto Machida is going to be facing the winner of Henderson Jones, which is September 1st at UFC 151. But what would you like to see happen to Ryan Bader next? I think that's probably the more important question here. Is what does the UFC do with Ryan Bader? He's probably too good for low-end fighters, but is he gatekeeper material? Has he solidified himself as a 205 gatekeeper?
I'm most interested to what David would think. What I have to, or Jesus Christ, I can't even talk. David, what do you think about Bader versus Phil Davis?
I think Phil will destroy him, but then again, I think it's probably Bader still has a name. It would probably mean more to beat Bader than it would have to beat whoever he was fighting tonight.
Yeah, Prado.
I think it's a safe fight for Phil, though. I don't think Bader really has a chance against Phil. I don't think he has a chance against any of the top 5 guys. A legitimate chance.
No.
And Phil's got much better wrestling. Phil would school him with his wrestling, and I think that's how Phil would win that fight. I do like it, but I like the idea even more of maybe sending Bader to Strikeforce.
I mean, there are a couple of things that I would like to see Bader do. I mean, I mentioned yesterday that I almost see Bader fitting into the Matt Yushchenko role. So, maybe Bader versus Matt Yushchenko or Bader versus Vera. I think Bader versus Vera probably makes a bit of sense.
That makes sense, right? That sounds like a fight that could happen.
Yeah, I actually think that's probably more like I would prefer to see Bader versus Davis, because I think they're probably a little higher up in terms of the scheme of things at 205. But after tonight, watching the way that Vera performed and watching the way that Bader performed, and tonight, despite the fact that they were going with who was going to be the most impressive winner, tonight almost had like a tournament style feel. So it'd be kind of cool to see the winner fight the winner and the loser fight the loser. That was kind of the way I was viewing it.
Right. No.
What about Phil against Shogun?
See, I'd like to see I'd rather see Shogun fight Gustafsson at this point.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't, especially with the fluke accident that happened tonight, I need to see Phil get a win over somebody, not the guy he was fighting tonight, Prado. I'd like to see him get another win underneath his belt before he fights Shogun. Although I think with his wrestling, he would probably have a field day with Shogun.
Plus, I mean, we don't know if they're just going to go ahead. I really hope they don't do this, because we were talking about this as just a fight that Phil Davis did not belong in. but there's a very real possibility that they'll just do a rematch between Prado and Davis.
Yeah, there's more than likely that what's going to happen. Okay. So now we're sending Ryan Bader to either Strikeforce or the Circus or something.
Bellator. Circus, same difference.
Same difference. Let's talk about the main event real quick. Look.
Hey, I think he could dominate Invicta.
I think Shogun looked awful. I'm going to come out and say it. He got tired in the second round. He was landing some good hits on Vera, especially in that first round. He looked really fresh in the first round and then just kind of crashed from there. I have to blame Vera for not winning this fight. I think he had moments where he could have won this fight, especially when he was on top in a very loose half guard and did nothing with it. He did absolutely nothing with it. Watching Brandon Vera fight is the most frustrating thing, especially since we've seen him do better. I think he could have won this fight. Especially in that third round, I think he could have won this fight. He had really, really bright moments where he was landing kicks. He was dazing Shogun with some good strikes. He was landing great combinations, and then just he freezes up when the fight comes back to him. He doesn't know what to do. Brown looked awful, and I'm hoping. I know for the public persona. I mean, Lloyd Irvin, Lloyd Irvin has already said that he's proud of Brandon Vera and blah blah blah. I hope he rips him a new one behind the scenes, because there's no reason to look like a fish out of water, like he's never done jiu-jitsu before a day in his life on the ground when you're supposed to be a black belt under Lloyd Irvin. I was disappointed all around with both their performances. I still think it was a fun fight, don't get me wrong, but I expected better out of both of them. Especially Shogun, because he is who he is, and he came into this fight being the diamond in this kind of card, and then he disappointed me. I think Dana White made the right choice in picking Machida, because Machida looked like he looked fresh, he looked fast, he looked ready to go. Shogun did not look ready to go at all. He looked soft around the middle. I'm just kind of pissy about that. It was still a fun fight. I enjoyed the fight. Don't get me wrong. And if it got Fight of the Year candidacy, I'm for it 100%. But I expected more out of both of these guys, considering that they're elite fighters. I really wanted Brandon to show me something different. He did at some points, and then again he just seems to freeze up at points where it's really time for him to step on the gas and go, and he just kind of. Him sitting on top of Shogun for like a minute and a half in the second round was the most frustrating 90 seconds of my life. Where he wouldn't pass. He wouldn't pass. He wasn't doing anything. He threw in the last 10 seconds. Really? I don't know. I'm not really.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely frustrating to watch. I mean, I've never been. I've always been fairly about what my views are about Brandon Vera, and I will say that despite the fact that he did make the worst, some kind of glaring sort of mistakes that he made tonight, I will say that I was a million times over impressed with him that I have been in his last few performances in the octagon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, for him to have issues with Elliot Marshall to come in and then have get to a point where it looked like he made Shogun look very beatable. I think he deserves some praise for that. And I'm hoping David is actually recording this or taking notes so that for one time in my life I'm giving Brandon Vera some praise.
David,
the most grudging praise ever.
Yeah, I don't know. It was so frustrating for me to watch. But good on him for going 4 rounds with Shogun. I think there were moments he could have ended that fight. Shogun comes in spurts. He really does. He comes on really strong.
That's what she said. I beat you to it.
We are officially changing the name of the show to That's What She Said.
Comes in spurts. How can you not?
TWSS. That's going to be our show. TWSS. That's what she said. Yeah, I was not impressed with with that aspect of the fight. You know, it was still a fun fight. It's like the Dan Henderson Shogun fight. That was a fun fight. That was a hell of a fun fight. That was sloppy as shit, though. That was a sloppy fight. But still fun to watch. I feel the same way about this fight. There were so many opportunities for Brandon Vera, and I could hear Master Lloyd screaming at him at parts. You know, his voice must be so hoarse right now from screaming at him. But it's got to be frustrating for him too, having a fighter like Brandon Vera, who definitely has it. He has the ability to really be something, and he just lacks this. I don't know. You got to have a little bit of reckless abandonment, I think, to be an elite fighter. You got to be willing to take risks, and Brandon Vera is not willing to do that. And I don't know what to say. I mean, what do you think happens next with Brandon Vera, Justin? I want to wrap this up.
As far as Brandon Vera, I think, I mean, I hadn't really considered it, but maybe a move to Strikeforce might not be a bad idea for him, because their 205 division is really lacking at this point. I mean, aside from maybe OSP and Gegard Mousasi, I really don't know who else they have at this point. They may be planning to kind of move everyone over to the UFC at some point, because I don't know if any of those guys really fall under that quote-unquote list, where they can't be pushed over to the UFC. But I think Ryan Bader versus Brandon Vera, or even Vera versus, well, I mean, I don't know if they would do Vera versus Davis. I mean, that would be kind of tough to do, given that the fact that they train together now. But, you know, or even Vera versus Thiago Silva. You know, that's a fight that I think Brandon Vera probably wants to kind of get some redemption, due to the fact that originally it was lost and then changed to a no contest due to Thiago Silva turning in horse piss. But I mean, like, some people were saying that, you know, if Brandon Vera loses, he's definitely going to lose his job. And
no, I don't think so. Yeah.
After tonight's performance and putting on a show like he did, like, it was the weirdest thing. Like, everyone was like, "Oh, how are you going to follow that fight?" And every fight was awesome. I think the only fight that might have been slightly disappointing was the Bader Machida fight. And I think if that fight had been on any other card that kind of had its ups and downs, I think that fight would have been booed, because the prelims were amazing, and then the first two fights on the main card were amazing. I think that fight luckily just kind of ran the roller coaster and was complete. The fans were completely fine to watch something that was completely technical and really, you know, for hardcore. I definitely heard some boos in the second round, but I think that entire fight would have been booed if it had been like the co-main event on like 149.
Oh God.
Well, I mean, everything was booed on that card, but I mean, what I'm saying,
but it ended quickly enough too. Really, like, didn't it end early in the second round?
Well, I mean, the first round where, I mean, Machida is an extremely technical. Well, he's not the kind of guy to sort of jump into things. He kind of waits for you to make a mistake, and then he
counters. Counters. So if you're not engaging, it's not going to be that exciting.
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't find the first, like, there are two sides to me. There's the casual fan who wants to see the swinging crap and, you know, no regard for skill. But then there's the hard fan who wants to see the ground transitions and who is going to, you know, the transitions on Varner. You know, you can see that in Vader. I mean, you got to see some more technical striking, like, you know, you did kind of show a little bit doing this Anderson Silva kind of stuff. I think on any other card, I think that fight gets booed more than it did.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But I mean, it was to steal a pro wrestling term. I think the crowd tonight.
Yeah, they were. and they got treated really well. If I had been a person who bought my ticket there, I would have been a little nervous, especially after 149. But it was real hard, just 2 seconds. What kind of numbers we think this is going to bring in? If the numbers would have been any different, what we discussed yesterday than today. But do you think there's enough excitement on this card to be people, their friends, and told them to tune in? It's really kind of overshadowed everything.
First,
I think combination of the Olympics and it not. I don't think this card was that attractive on paper to add. I think it's still. I think it's around the numbers of the last show.
Less than 3 million.
Yeah. It would be great to see, like, let's say, word of mouth really picked up. Like after the first fight, there's a big spike. After your second fight, but I don't see that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, guys. Anything else before we go ahead and close up shop here?
I think. Matt Hamill might be here. You want to talk to Matt Hamill?
You want to talk to Matt Hamill?
Matt Hamill's here. You don't want to interview him?
Oh my God, you are not doing it. He's doing it. I was lost there for a second. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No. I got a question for Matt Hamill. Matt Hamill, what did you think of the commentating tonight?
Oh my God! All right, I'm totally. Oh, we're ending the show on a really bad note here. There's a special place in Hades for all three of us. Thanks, guys, for dragging me there. If I wasn't already guaranteed to go there, thanks for dragging me there.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna close up shop here. We'll have our regular show. We may or may not have our regular show this coming up Friday. I'll be flying to Denver. I have to check my flight plans. I'm pretty sure I took a morning flight. So we might still be able to do the show in the evening. My laptop should be here by then, and I can do it on the road.
In Denver next week?
Yes, I'll be at UFC 150 for Henderson and.
That's Saturday?
Yeah.
Holy shit! Really?
Yeah. But if I can't do the regular Friday show, I think I scheduled my flight early enough so that I can. But if I can't do the show Friday for whatever reason. Let's plan on doing a post-fight show because I'll likely just book it back to my hotel anyway. I don't really like
Erica, if you want to send me and Gracie some sort of itinerary or some sort of how you set up the show, like, I mean, if I could probably get out of work a little early on Friday enough so that I could set it up and maybe broadcast from my apartment.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. That sounds, we might have Kohi doing shows by himself, just randomly, like 3 o'clock in the morning. Kohi's live right now.
CRTJ.
All right, guys. Great show. Great Fox show. And we will talk to everybody either next Friday or next Saturday. So have a good week, everybody, and looking forward to next week's fights. Peace.